Welcome back, dear viewers. Our first guest of the evening is Dana Al-Rashid, architect and visual artist. Dana, good evening, and it's really a pleasure to have you with us tonight on Hala Kuwait.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is all mine.
It's always a pleasure. So, when did you develop, or before you tell us about development of your art, tell us what is miniature art?
Okay. Miniature or miniature art is, both pronunciations are correct.
Okay.
And miniature art is an art form that was prevalent in the Islamic Empire. And it goes back as early as the 12th century, even though it experienced a high time or a sort of a renaissance in the 14th, 15th century. And it is known for its flat perspective, and it was often used to illustrate science books, spiritual books, metaphysical books. So even religious or spiritual topics were illustrated using miniature art as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. So there's definitely a lot of history behind miniature art. So when did you actually develop an interest in it?
Not too long ago, actually. It was only 2020 that I have developed a keen interest in miniature art. It is because of my own research into Islamic art and history.
Yes.
I do really find it interesting to see the flat perspective and the amount of details in miniature art.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, so from interest into development, how did you get the development, this art? How did you develop your talent?
How did I develop my talent? Okay. I've been drawing since I was about 9 years old, and choosing a profession that is also visually inclined, so because I studied architecture. I went to architecture school, and afterwards I received a scholarship in Cartoon Network Animation Studios.
Well, that's great.
Amazing.
So I studied 2D animation in Abu Dhabi 2454, and while I was studying in architecture school, there was a plethora of art-related topics such as art theory, art criticism, painting classes, design classes. So that made me become very well equipped for the next chapter, which was the miniature art.
That's amazing. So we can say you're definitely well-rounded when it comes to arts and most aspects in it. So I'll go back a bit to the animation that you spoke about.
Yes.
Can you tell us about it, and how does it differ from our everyday art or the art we're used to seeing?
Animation is a labor of love. If only you knew how much work and effort it takes to draw a frame-by-frame animated short film or movie. And there's a variety of animated films. So there's film quality, and oftentimes it's done by independent studios, while other times you have the more commercial things that may target families or children. So the scope is very wide, and but they all share one thing in common, is the hard work and dedication it takes for animation.
It's definitely very interesting.
Definitely.
Mohammed.
And what do you think, Dana, about the animations like we used to watch when we were kids, the ones from the 50s and the 60s from the past century? It was really rich with colors. What happened later?
I have to agree with you. I almost get teary-eyed when I see the old animation like that we used to watch as kids, Warner Brothers, Tom and Jerry, because they are completely handmade, and the style, the rich colors, is because of a style called cell shading. And very interesting piece of information for you is that mostly the coloring was done by women.
Okay.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. So women in the animation industry were mostly...
Why? What's so special about it? What's so why women are so talented?
We seem to have a better understanding of color.
Right.
And back then, and I would say up until now as well, women often are family-oriented. They are the caregivers. So by choosing something like coloring, you're not doing the keyframes, you're not doing the in-betweens in which your style can be easily detected, or you would be. So by coloring, you would be somewhat more replaceable in case you have conditions at home.
Right. That's very interesting, honestly, to know the behind the scenes of the animation world. But back to her work, I think, Mohammed. So what does your work aim to say?
Okay. Miniature art, I coined the term, especially for my own style. I call it modern miniature. And the reason for that is that I'm inspired by the classic miniature style. However, I use modern tools and techniques. So I use digital art. I use pixel art to create the mosaics.
That's
and since I work in historic building preservation, a lot of my artwork tackles buildings in Kuwait.
Really nice.
Documents the buildings in Kuwait. So that's one segment of my work. The other segment of my work is almost has a time traveling quality to it. So I like to redraw and be inspired from ancient manuscripts.
Wow.
Well, that's really great. So about your painting, the style you're adopting now, how long you've been painting the style you're adopting?
I have only been doing so since 2020. So only a couple of years now.
That's
and
great.
The inspiration for this, it's a very interesting story. Because while I was studying in college, I remember my instructor, mentor, and a person that I later on I taught with, Farid Abdal. He asked us as students to visualize Kuwait in a flat perspective, such as the one in miniature art. And he was enticing us to visualize it as a greener Kuwait,
right,
as a more developed Kuwait. And the image and the visual stayed in my head for, let's say, a dormancy period. And then the grasses have began to shoot around 2020 with the pandemic. As you can see from my artwork, some of the artworks are inspired by the pandemic and our experience in it, and as well as the urgency for the preservation of historic buildings in Kuwait.
That's
well,
amazing.
that's really amazing and great. And finally, you mentioned your inspirations. We were talking before we went on air about your inspirations. It was really a great story you just mentioned.
Definitely, I agree with you, Mohammed. And I also think that every artist has someone that influences their work or certain things you might see around you. So I'd like to know, what's your biggest influences?
I like to draw from my own heritage and from my own culture. I find it very important to do so as Arab artists. There's a huge stigma around Arab artists and the way we are being portrayed.
Right.
So rather than borrow from Western styles, why not check out the ancient manuscripts and borrow from them?
Right.
At the same time, merge them with current pressing issues that we are facing.
Definitely. I think that's a really great way to connect to everything that's happening really around the world with our past and definitely what's happening right now, Mohammed.
Yeah, so we mentioned inspiration, influence. Now it's time to mention the support. Who's supporting you?
I'd like to think of myself as someone who is self-made. Let's put it this way. However, I have received great, enormous support from Sikka magazine in the Emirates.
Great.
And Khaliji Art Museum, which is under the umbrella of Sikka magazine. And special thanks to Sharifa and Manar Al-Hinai, who have been endorsing my artwork. I have been featured thanks to them and to the Sikka team and the Khaliji Art Museum team. I have been featured in massive publications such as Vogue, Cosmopolitan, Art and Object magazine, which is totally focused on visual arts. And I have also my own digital art gallery in the Khaliji Art Museum, as well as a permanent piece that they own the rights to right now.
Well,
that's really great. I think you've reached amazing places with your art. And I think exhibitions are also really important to every artist. Can we know when you had your first exhibition?
I would like to consider the Khaliji Art Museum as the first solo exhibition, because prior to that, I would maybe participate in one or two paintings.
Right.
Yeah.
But not like a complete one.
Exactly.
By you.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yes.
Yeah. What about your special artwork? Or let's say, like when it comes to your artwork, do you want to mention something about it? And what is your special piece when it comes to your artwork?
My artworks, each piece is like a child to me. I am quite attached to my artworks. Maybe that's unusual to hear, but there is, it's almost a spiritual process when I really immerse myself into, creating a piece. And I often find, because it's a labor of love and because of all the dedication and the amount of effort and details, I am often a different person after the painting.
Well, that's very great.
So it reflects positively on me.
Dana, but we still want to know the most special piece you own.
He's still digging for it.
I think one of them is actually displayed here, is about the last skate, which is about the ice skating rink.
Wow.
So one of the paintings is actually...
is it shown here?
I believe so. I believe so.
You send it. If we can see it now, I can show it.
For sure. So till we have that image present, we were speaking about your exhibitions.
Yes.
So are you planning on having an exhibition completely by you with all your art pieces?
I would love to. I would absolutely love to. And I'm definitely working towards that right now.
Definitely. I think good luck with that, and I can't wait to see that.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have, like, when it comes to the history of art, do you want to mention something more about the history of art? Because you mentioned you go back in time.
Yes.
To see, like, historic pieces of art. Do you want to mention something more about it?
Yes, definitely. So miniature art, what makes it very interesting is, as I said earlier, it dates back to almost the 12th century, and it experienced a high form of Renaissance, let's say, around the 14th, 15th century. And there are 4 schools of miniature art: the Arabic, the Persian, the Turkish, and the Mughal, which comes from India. However, I believe that the Persians and the Turks, but particularly the Persians, have exceeded and have refined this artwork to really high levels.
Yes, for sure. I think there's been a lot of development in art, just like any field, and it was great to really hear more about it through you, Dana. But do you have any final words or even advice for young talents that are looking into coming into art?
Yes, I'd like to say that the most important thing you can do for yourself is consistency. I remember, for example, in college, I was not the best artist out there. And I had some of my colleagues were fantastic visual artists.
Exactly.
Yes.
However, by consistency and committing myself to painting every single day and exposing myself to artwork and having this vision, it really helps.
Definitely really important. Well, Dana, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It was our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dana, and we cannot wait to visit your future exhibitions, and we wish you the best of luck with your path and your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Dear viewers, we had with us Al-Rashid, architect and visual artist. Up next, we have a report on humidity before we have with us the meteorologist himself to talk to us about the current weather. Stay tuned.